From Rhythm and Light in Chicago, I'm Steve Ordauer, and welcome to Rhythm of Life. Mr. Ernie Hudson.
We haven't gotten here by accident. I mean, that school I went to, I was able to sort of come out of it, but most of those kids, almost all those kids, they got lost, and did not have great lives. But it's needed. Whether we'll step up to the reckoning without going to civil war, I mean, whether we'll see there's a need, and maybe we personally might not have, a reason to say, what, we need to be inclusive. We're all in this together. That sense of unity as Americans, of course, now with the whole social media and the internet and all that stuff, I mean, they're playing with our minds and trying to control and all that.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know how we overcome this new place we're at, but I think we have to. And the thing with African-American movies and some of the stuff they're doing, these stories have not been told. They need to be told.
Yes.
But the whole angst and some of the tragic stuff, we didn't survive with just the tragedy. People loved and laughed. So there was never a doubt in my mind, a question that I would be successful. The problem was I think I prayed not the wrong prayer. I should have added to that prayer, I want to make a lot of money. When you ask, I just want to work. I want to work. If you can just let me work in this industry, I'll honor it and I'll be so thankful. I should have said, and make a lot of money. I forgot to put the money in.
I'm sorry, I forgot how funny you were.
I was doing a play in LA. I met Michael, didn't know him. Actually, he was at a party, and I just sort of went up and introduced myself and asked if he would introduce me to his agent, which he looked at me like, what? I don't even know you. He called his agent, and the agent gave me an appointment to go see him in Beverly Hills. I was intimidated to be in Beverly Hills, waited, and finally he came out to call me in the office. And before I could say anything, he said, listen, the only reason I'm seeing you is because Michael is one of my best clients, and he asked me to see you. So I saw you, so now you can leave. And I said, but I'm new, and I was trying to give him my little spiel. And he said, I don't want to hear that. I said, I don't want to hear it. I tried to show my portfolio. He says, I don't want to see that shit. He says, I get this shit in the mail every day. And he held up his waste basket. It had a bunch of photos that actors had sent in. And he says, so I said, well, because I asked, can I give you my picture in case something comes up? He said, what am I going to do with that? So he says, best thing you can do is go back to Detroit or wherever the hell you come from, because you're not going to work out here. I can tell you that now. There's nothing for you here.
Today on the show, Bob Hercules sits down with attorney Flint Taylor to discuss the murder of Black Panther leader Fred Hampton in 1969, who is the subject of the recent film Judas and the Black Messiah.
All of these leaders and organizations were very powerful in the civil rights movement and in the black liberation struggle. So Hoover then sent out memos in 67 and again in early 68 calling for disruption and, quote, neutralization of these leaders and these organizations. And of course, we learned that neutralization is a term and was a term of art. CIA used it, and that could mean several things, but it included, of course, assassination. And that they named not only the organizations from SCLC all the way to the Nation of Islam and SNCC and Rap Brown and his organization, but they named those leaders as messiahs who could electrify and unify the black nationalist movement. They then Hoover sent out this memo saying we need to neutralize these leaders and these organizations and prevent the rise of a messiah who could do this in the sense of could electrify and unify the movement.
So we always say in the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary. And you're gonna have to keep on saying that.
Hailed by NPR as one of America's defining voices of freedom and peace, Mavis Staples is an iconic artist whose impact on culture continues to reverberate.
Well, Uncloudy Day took off. It took off, and it just, she said, Staples, this record is selling like an R&B. And we began getting letters from all over, everywhere. I was singing bass on this song. You know, we'd sing down in harmony. Whoa, they tell me. Whoa, so we knew that the people had bet their money that I was not a little girl. We were fooling them. My brother was singing. And we'd sing the song down to it came to my part. And Purvis would ease in to the microphone like he was going to say the bass part. And the people would go, wow, I told you that wasn't no little girl. I told you. And they going through all that. I'd ease in, and then I would come, well, oh, so yes, they tell me. Lord, they tell me now. So yes, they tell I got a home, so yes, got a home beyond the sky. So yes, man, the people, the disc jockeys would say, this is little 14-year-old Mavis Staples singing on Cloudy Day. People would not believe I was a little girl.
I bet they didn't.
I had to be either a man or a big fat lady. So we would fool the people. You know, man, the place would go wild.
A critic once said, give John Langford 4 hours with nothing to do, and chances are good he'll create another side project.
And you know, we got quite good with minimal resources at actually putting on some kind of exciting show. But literally, it was all backwards. Rather than having a solo, someone would drop out.
Right.
You know, so that's where the Gang of Four perfected that as well. Right. It was like that was like a dub reggae thing, you know. Where rather than some like add something else on top at this point, right? The bass player drops out. Those were the kind of dynamics. They were very simple, but they were very effective. Punk was about, you had to be, I think the first gig with the Rosillos I was talking about, the John Keenan actually, we told him we only played slow songs. We were going to be the first punk band that only played slow songs, and he just went, well, you better speed them up or they'll tear you apart.
Before he left our studio, John performed a brand new song that he had just written, a fitting song for the divisive times we're in.
The mission is to frighten and confuse you, distract and call you losers. You're all losers, 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 losers. Now we're all losers.
I was motivated to start working on this book right around the election of Donald Trump. And we began to hear a level of hostility towards the press that I did not remember in my lifetime. So I was really wondering how much of this was truly unprecedented in American history and how much maybe did have some precedence.
Hello, I'm your host, Steve Ordauer, and welcome to Rhythm of Life. Today on the show, I welcome a dear friend and colleague, John Marshall, who has written a vital and timely book titled Clash, Presidents and the Press in Times of Crisis. This work explores the political, economic, social, and technological forces that have shaped the relationship between U.S. presidents and the press during pivotal moments in the country's history, and helps us understand how we arrived at our current troubled state of affairs. Today, guest host Bob Hercules sits down with the prolific author, journalist, and filmmaker Alex Kotlowitz.
When I had finished the bulk of the reporting, I went through this kind of really deep depression, unlike anything I've ever experienced before. And I wasn't kind of self-aware enough to realize what was going on, but I realized in hindsight, I mean, I went into therapy, I needed to, was it had so much to do with all these stories that I had digested over the course of the previous few years. I mean, for me, the great catharsis I had, of course, is I was able to take pen to paper and tell these stories.
Right.
And there's something really empowering about
like your father had done many years earlier,
about his
to
own
get it out on
right.
paper is cathartic.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. I mean, it's a brave book to have taken on. And I, again, don't mean to take anything away from the trauma that they experienced, but for you as well, it's difficult. But I'm so glad you wrote this book because, again, it gives us an insight. All we hear about is, this person was killed in a shootout or this and that, and we don't know who these people are.
Right, and more often than not, you read stories that it was gang related, suggesting that the victim would kind of got their due, or what goes around comes around, or we just have these stories or headlines of numbers like we're in a pennant race, and we kind of forget about these individuals.
What inspired you to get into acting and writing to begin with?
I got married so young. I thought it would be very simple: get a job, take care of your family, buy a house, and how hard can it be? So, but it got complicated real fast.
I used to have those same thoughts.
Boy,
were we naive.
I'll just try to end with something fun.
Okay, sure.
Not in the book, but after researching these presidents, it's almost felt like I was living with them as I wrote each chapter. I was just so immersed in what they did, and kind of in my head, I imagined I was going to have a barbecue, and which presidents would I want to have at my barbecue?
That's a good one.
The one I decided I would least want to have would be Woodrow Wilson. First, he's a raging racist, so that pretty much knocks him out to begin with. Even if you could set that aside, he was such a sort of stern. He just felt he was just sure he knew the truth about everything, and would just lecture people and be very stern. It just did not seem like a whole lot of fun to hang out with.
Right.
The one I would want to invite to my cocktail barbecue would be Franklin Roosevelt, because he was known for really being able to mix a good cocktail, as well as being highly sociable. So I figured he'd be a lot of fun to have there and would help get the party going. So if you want party advice on presidents, read Clash, Presidents in the Press in Times of Crisis.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, John. It's been a real pleasure.
You're welcome, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for tuning into the show. If you enjoy this podcast, make sure to subscribe to hear more compelling shows on Rhythm of Life, and keep an eye out for our upcoming series of how we as a society oftentimes incentivize all the wrong behavior here in the United States. We see this in the healthcare industry, in the media, and in our educational systems, to name a few of the fields we will be covering. If you have a moment, please leave a rating and review so more people can hear about us, and share about Rhythm of Life on social media, and like us on Facebook. Thanks for listening. I'm Steve Ordauer.
This has been a Rhythm and Light production.